Pokemon Black and White 2 are interesting games. They do not follow the usual third game installment within a set of games such as Pokemon Yellow for Red and Blue, Crystal for Gold and Silver, Emerald for Ruby and Sapphire, and Platinum for Diamond and Pearl. Everyone was anticipating Pokemon Gray after the release of Pokemon Black and White in 2011. Game Freak instead threw a curveball and decided to switch things up this time around, giving us Pokemon Black and White 2 sequels to the original Black and White. With Pokemon Black and White being the most story-driven game in the series up to that point, it was the perfect opportunity to bring in sequels into the mix. You could argue Pokemon Gold and Silver are sequels to Red and Blue, thus making them the first sequels in the series, though it's not a direct sequel. I think the general consensus is that Black 2 and White 2 hold that spot. In my personal opinion, Pokemon Black and White 2 are the best Pokemon games to date. There is so much to unpack here, even more so than Black and White. There's of course the main story following your traditional Pokemon trainer H and Bat's journey and an evil team causing problems with the box art legendary Pokemon. There's new towns, cities, and areas too. Unpopular, but you also have Pokestar Studios. Through Pokestar Studios, you can create movies with your Pokemon. The goal is to follow the scripts you are given and try to get the good ending. Aside from a good ending, you can also get a bad and strange ending. Once you finish a movie, you can watch it in its entirety. You can also see how your movie does in the box office with revenue that it pulls in. There is some depth there for sure. Now as an adult looking at this game mode, I have yet to give it a proper shot. I only play through the tutorial and continue with the main story. I may try it out more in depth later on, but hey, it's certainly something very unique to the series, and this is the only game we've seen this mode in, and it adds a good variety to an already packed game. I cannot complain. You also have the Pokemon World Tournament, where you can face notable gym leaders and champions from the 5 established generations at the time. This includes characters such as Red, Blue Giovanni, and Steven Stone, just to name a few. Their soundtracks even get a remix, and I mean every one of them gets their theme remixed. This may seem like just fan service to many, bringing old characters into a battling facility, but it's damn good fan service. And this may be one of the best battling facilities of all time, perhaps even better than the Battle Frontier in both Gens 3 and 4. Hidden grottoes have to be one of my favorite features ever. These are secret areas, usually a set of 2 trees in which you can go, located in routes and other unique locations around the region, but you really have to keep a keen eye out for them because they can be hard to spot. Within these secret areas, most of the time you'll get some throwaway items such as Pokeballs, potions, mulch, repels. If you're lucky, you may get shards, rare candies, PP items such as PP Up or PP Max, or evolutionary stones. If you're really lucky, you can get Pokemon encounters. Not just regular Pokemon encounters though. These Pokemon in these hidden grottoes have with them their Dream World abilities, or how they are referred to as now, hidden abilities. These hidden abilities can turn a not so good Pokemon into a valuable member of your team. They really can make a Pokemon a lot better given the right ability. This just made those Pokemon with these hidden abilities more accessible than before, which is a plus. You also have Join Avenue, where you can build a little shopping mall of sorts. If you're a fan of Animal Crossing and being able to develop a hub center and see it grow, you'll definitely enjoy this. I certainly came to appreciate it with my most recent playthrough. I haven't done research on exactly the best method to gather points when recommending shops so that the Avenue rank goes up, but I did manage to get my Join Avenue up to rank 4. It's something I'm working on post-game and something I'm still learning about as of the making of this video. Definitely give this little layer of the game the light of day. It's neat. You also have the medal system in Black and White 2. This is essentially just achievements for you to complete. There are a total of 255 medals within the game. When you start off in your adventure, you'll be seeing Mr. Medal in the Pokemon Center quite often, as you'll be completing some of these achievements without even really trying. You'll be collecting medals for some of the easiest tasks in the game, such as Light Walker, which you have to have walked 5,000 steps in the Unova region, or Step by Step Saver, which requires you to have saved your game at least 10 times. Some of these medals are ridiculous, like EXP Millionaire, which requires you to gain over 1 million experience points in a single day. This is doable if you really apply yourself and grind auto-no encounters with a lucky egg attached, but still kind of ridiculous. It's gonna take you a good minute. You actually start off in Aspertia City and not New Vema Town. Aspertia City is on the west, New Vema Town is on the east, the complete opposite side of the map. This of course changes not only the order in which you traverse the Unova region, but also the order of the gym badges and who you face for said gym badges. That's right, you have a couple of new gym leaders here such as Sharon, Roxy, and Marlin. Instead of facing Chili, Silent, and Cress in Stratton City, you have to face Sharon in Aspertia City. Instead of facing Lenora in Green City, you face Roxy in Burbank City, and instead of facing Bryson in Icarus City, you face Marlin in Humuli City. Speaking of gym leaders, I really love the attention to detail when it came to developing these characters. For a very long time, gym leaders just kind of sat there in their gyms waiting for you to battle them and get their badge, and even after you beat them, they still just stay there, not doing anything, almost like an empty husk, just sitting there. What I appreciate about these games, as well as Black and White, is that they aren't just gym leaders. They have a second profession. They do other things besides just battle up and coming trainers looking to become the next champion of the region. Sharon is a teacher at the newly opened Pokemon school in Aspertia City. Roxy plays in a rock band. Burke is an artist. Elisa is a model and celebrity. Clay is a businessman and a miner. Skyla is a pilot. Drayden is the mayor of Opelousas City. Marlin is a surfer. Even gym leaders from the previous game, Chili, Silent, and Cress, run a restaurant. Lenora is an archaeologist and a librarian. Bryson is an actor who plays roles in PokeStar Studios, and this second profession of theirs gives the story a simple explanation as to why they aren't gym leaders anymore. Chili, Silent, and Cress may have wanted to focus on the restaurant. However, there is a memory if you play through Black and White 2 through the memory link feature, where these triplets basically explain why they weren't at Ends Castle with the rest of the gym leaders when everything with Team Plasma went down in the first game. They felt as if they were just too weak to do anything or be of any help. So that may be another reason as to why they are not gym leaders in the sequel game 2 years later. Lenora simply wanted to focus more on her work at the Nat Green Museum, and Bryson wanted to pursue his main passion in acting. This gives these gym leaders not only more character but deep development as well. Bianca, who is your rival in the first game in Black and White, she simply wants to go on an adventure with Pokemon and have that experience. In Black and White 2, she takes a step down and is now Professor Juniper's assistant and helps with her research and has found a new passion within that field of work. Even Victory Road and Route 10, the landscape gets developed in this game due to the actions of Team Plasma in the first game and Ends Castle. Route 10 leading into Victory Road is basically abolished. It literally does not exist within Black 2 and White 2 because of the destruction. That is cool as fuck. Something that some of the fans of the series complained about was the lack of any old Pokemon in Black and White. The regional decks consisted strictly of Generation 5 Pokemon native to the Unova region. I will say I never saw the big deal with this, and it's a shame they never went back and did this again. I actually quite liked it. It prevented me from using Gyarados for the 37th time and forced me to use Pokemon that were freshly introduced to all of us. Black and White 2, though, did go back to what previous games did and implemented old Pokemon from past generations into the region. What's cool is that they give an explanation for this. In the span of the 2 years since the events of the first game, there was a massive migration of different Pokemon from other regions into the Unova region, which I can appreciate because it's not insulting my intelligence. During my most recent playthrough, I got rid of my starter Pokemon, a first time ever for me. I've always dabbled with the idea to ditch my starter Pokemon and go through a playthrough without your typical water, fire, or grass starter, and that was the case here. If you're curious though, my favorite of the three is probably Snivy, then Tepig, and then Oshawott. My Snivy was just sitting in the box during the entire 40-hour playthrough. Unfortunately, I don't have a capture card to record my DS, nor did I play on an emulator for footage, but my team consisted of Lucario, Scolipede, Magmar, Sigilyph, Jellicent, and Lilligant. This is probably the best game to get a Lucario, as you can get Riolu very early on in the game, and who doesn't like Lucario? Need I say more as to why I added him to my team? I always found Scolipede to be a really cool design, and it did pull through as an MVP at the start of the game, though toward the second half of the game it was falling a bit behind, which is unfortunate, but I still ended up loving my Scolipede. As for Magmar, I chose not to evolve simply because I like its design more than Magmortar, and I also wanted to run a Pokemon with Eviolite. Sigilyph is just such an obscure and out there Pokemon that people don't really see or hear much from, so I slapped it onto the team. And it's also a special attacking beast. Jellicent was the tank of the team with its massive HP stat, and being a water ghost type is sick. It really did pull through. I added Lilligant to my team at first to simply complete the water, fire, grass core, and initially I was going to use Whimsicott, but I do actually like Lilligant more, and it was probably the monster of the team, believe it or not. Though Petilil and Lilligant are version exclusives to White 2, as I was playing Black 2, so I actually used the in-game trade Petilil named Petulia. You have learned Quiver Dance, Sleep Powder, and Petal Dance with own tempo for its ability. You can set up and sweep anything in the game. Overall, I loved playing with this team. Team Plasma is back at it in Pokemon Black and White 2. This time around there are two Team Plasma teams. Old Team Plasma and Neo Team Plasma. The Old Team Plasma members are trying to right their wrongs and become better people after Ghetsis brainwashed them into thinking his goal was Pokemon liberation, but really it was just world domination. Neo Team Plasma is a new version of Team Plasma. They have a new and slick black uniform. They look like pirates now. These guys still follow Ghetsis, and because their plans failed 2 years ago, they are back at it to carry out Ghetsis and his plan to freeze the Unova region using Kyurem's power. Ghetsis in this game is just unhinged, maddened by what happened 2 years ago and the betrayal of his son, N. He has a lust of destruction and to rule the entire region. N shows up at the right time to help the protagonist right when Ghetsis is about to practically kill you with Kyurem using Glaciate. I love N. This is one of the best written characters in all of Pokemon, thus making him one of the most compelling. He has less appearances in this game, but even with his more limited appearances, he is still just as impactful to the plot. Colress is another one of my more favorite characters. He's not really part of Team Plasma. Ghetsis did bring him on board to lead Neo Team Plasma, but he could care less about Ghetsis, Team Plasma, and his ambitions. He has his own goals in mind. Throughout the game, you'll come across Colress and he'll test you in battle. He wants to know what brings out the full potential in Pokemon. By the end of the story, he comes to understand that it's a strong bond between people and Pokemon that brings out the full potential in these creatures. That's really it as far as Colress goes. It's nothing too deep. I think the reason I find him so interesting is because of how polar opposite he is from Ghetsis. Both are on the same side, though both have different ambitions in mind. Also, Ghetsis is crazy and ruthless, while Colress is calm and collected in his way of handling things. He's also very mysterious. Not much is known of him. He does make an appearance in Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but even in those games there is no more substance to him. I hope we see him again in a future game playing a bigger role and we get to know more about him. Also, his battle music is amazing. I'll briefly discuss Hugh here. I see Hugh receive a lot of hate, people saying he's one of the worst rivals in all of Pokemon. I disagree. I don't think he's incredible. I do think he lacks character, but he's not the worst or even close to being the worst in my opinion. His whole character arc is him wanting revenge on Team Plasma because they stole his little sister's Purloin. He has no other goals. This is all Hugh is about. People say, oh, why not just catch another Purloin? Well, you have to think about it as if Purloin was a regular everyday cat. If your cat gets stolen tomorrow, you're not just going to get a new cat the next day. You're going to make posts about a lost cat on your socials, maybe post flyers about it around your block, and you'll go into a search party looking for your cat. I sympathize with you. It's what I believe a normal human being would feel. Anger and sadness. I will say it's kind of hard to care at the same time when Hugh's little sister is just known as his little sister. She has no name or even a unique sprite to her to show more importance to this character and what Hugh is going through internally. But yeah, I think Hugh is a lot better than what people give him credit for. He's certainly better than May/Brendan or any of the Kalos rivals. Kyurem is the box art legendary Pokemon and what completes the Tower Trio. Kyurem as a standalone legendary Pokemon, I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't think it has a bad design, but it feels incomplete. But to that I say it actually makes sense if you look at it and it looks kind of weird. It's a shell of both Reshiram and Zekrom. After all, these three dragons were once one Pokemon and were the ultimate dragons, so if you look at it from that perspective, it just excels at its design, and I gotta give Game Freak props for that. Kyurem looks a lot better when it's either black or white Kyurem, I will say that. I'm more of a fan of black Kyurem, but white Kyurem is still dope. Side note, if we get another Legends game after ZA, let it take place in past Unova so we can see what the ultimate dragon looks like. Please, please, Game Freak. I mentioned Memory Link briefly earlier. I want to touch on this real quick because I am a big fan of this feature. It's not necessary for the plot or for you to play the game, but it for sure enhances the experience. If you have the previous game Black and White and you have a save file, through infrared connection you can unlock Memory Link, and throughout the game you'll come across major characters and even regular NPCs that recall events from the hero of 2 years ago, Hilda/Hilbert. This triggers cutscenes and events that took place after the events of Black and White as you progress through Black and White 2. Definitely, if you go back and play Black and White 2, activate Memory Link. It's worth it. It's not just memories that you can trigger, but you can also catch N's Pokemon, and they have their own sparkle animation unique to only these select Pokemon that N release. Man, it is unfortunate that Hilda or Hilbert were not added to this game. If I had a complaint, it would be that. Game Freak could have captured that feeling of facing Red on top of Mount Silver, facing the protagonist trainer of the previous game as the ultimate final boss of the game, but no, they are nowhere to be found. What hurts more is that apparently they were intended to be in the game but were scrapped last minute. I'm not sure if it was due to time constraints or what, but whatever the reason, it still sucks. Another thing I'm not a fan of, if I was to point out something else, was the feature to lock a challenge and easy mode after the main story of the game. I don't dislike the feature itself, I just don't like how they went about implementing it. It's so stupid, and they never did anything like this ever again. Thank goodness. Besides, I know Pokemon fans have always wanted a difficulty mode to be added to these games, but I will go on to say that Pokemon has had a difficulty slider since the inception of the series. That difficulty slider ends up becoming what Pokemon you choose to use during your playthrough. If you use Pokemon that are cracked out with really good stats, of course the game is going to be a walk in the park. Just use weaker Pokemon if you want a challenge, and stop crying. I'm just saying. The levels in the post-game trainer spike up significantly. I never once had to grind throughout the game to keep up with these levels. The game does an excellent job at keeping you at just the right level range so that you're not sweeping these battles or having a very difficult time. Black and White 2 is a decently challenging game. If you want an even bigger challenge, take on the Black Tower if you're playing through Pokemon Black 2, or the White Tree Hollow if you're playing through Pokemon White 2. I wouldn't call this a battling facility like the Battle Frontier or the Battle Subway. It's more so of a roguelike mode. You can't use any items in or outside of battle. The only items you can use are held items your Pokemon are holding prior to entering an area, which is a total of 10 areas. You do have a source of healing if you stumble across Pokemon doctors after defeating them in a battle. Usually there is one doctor per floor. If all of your Pokemon faint though, it's over. You will have to restart all over again. The first 5 areas are pretty simple. It's when you start going to areas 6 to 10 where the difficulty really goes up. Not only because of the Pokemon and their levels, but also the amount of trainers you have to deal with. On top of that, some of these areas consist of more than one floor now, and that's where the increase in battles comes. The goal is pretty much trying to get clues from these trainers to figure out who the gate trainer is. You'll have clues such as them being male or female, how many people are in the room, maybe they are spinning like crazy and looking in every direction. Once you spot the gate trainer and defeat them in battle, they will open the gate. This is where the area boss is. Defeat them and you advance to the next area. Once you reach area 10 and its final boss, you go one-on-one with Alder's grandson. Benga, who I'd say is the final boss of Pokemon Black and White 2. You could argue it's Cynthia who is the final boss in her battle that takes place in Undella Town. If you say either or, you're not wrong. Benga's teams are crazy. He will have a Latios, Garchomp, and Volcarona in Pokemon Black 2, and a Latias, Dragonite, and Volcarona in Pokemon White 2. After defeating him, he goes back to Flockacy Town, talk to him, and he will give you a guaranteed shiny Pokemon. A shiny Gible in Pokemon Black 2, and a shiny Dratini in Pokemon White 2. Just whatever you do, don't evolve the shiny Gible, please. The sprite work here, not much to say other than I'm in love with this sprite art style. They took what they already established in Diamond Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver and just juiced the visuals to the max. Looking more 3D than ever before we got the mainline games to actual 3D with Pokemon X and Y. The music, come on man, come on bro. What Pokemon OST is not a banger of hit after hit after hit? Black and White 2's OST rocks. Some standout themes are Colress's battle theme, Ghetsis' battle theme, End's battle theme, Team Plasma Grunt theme, and Accumula Town. It's quite the incredible feat that Game Freak was able to accomplish with Pokemon Black and White 2. The sheer amount of content in these games is amazing. It's a great continuation to Pokemon Black and White, and it stands to being close to the perfect Pokemon game to date.